Okay, so tonight we're going to be looking at our final module, which is looking at an application or a project, if you would, kind of bringing everything together that we've done this term. We've already gotten a start on it in Module 7 per assignments 7A and 7B, but now we're going to be kind of pulling it all together into creating that final assembly drawing. The last, week or last week, Module 7, it was the introduction to working drawings. So a set of working drawings is when we have, for instance, a final assembly, and we have an assembly drawing for that where it shows how each one of those parts are going to be put together with relationship to one another. And then we have details or individual parts that go into that or feed into that. So last week, we put together a small assembly, if you remember. It only had, I think, like 3 parts and some hardware, okay? And just kind of get us a taste for that process. But now we're going to apply it to this assembly. And we also started in assignment 7A and 7B, the individual parts that go into this final assembly. Now, if you're not done with all of these parts, that's okay, all right? But I do want to show you or demonstrate for you, number one, how to get started on this, how we pull our parts in. And I also want to show you some things to be aware of as you create that final assembly. Okay. So the intent here really is to get you started on it, give you a really good detailed overview so that as you start working on this assembly, you've got some good stuff to go on. Okay. All right, so as we look here in this final learning plan, you're going to notice that this says application machinist vice. And this machinist vice is going to be found in your textbook, okay, on page 687. So this is our agenda. So I'm just going to go underneath our camera and just remind us where this is. We did look at this last week. And if we go underneath on page 687 in our technical drawing, textbook, this is where this assembly is, okay? And what we see here is kind of a pictorial of the full assembly up in this upper right-hand corner, and then all of the individual part details for each one of these here. Now you'll notice that this is all in isometric view, okay? And what you were tasked with was last week in assignment 7A and 7B was making the detailed drawings for all of the individual parts here, okay? Using the dimensions that were here, but then also I had drawing guides for you to work through. And really kind of going off of those drawing guides to create the 3 views, if you would, the standard orthographically projected with good dimensioning for each one of those. So kind of peeking back at Module 7 and looking at assignment 7A and 7B, just reminding us of those individual parts. So the first part of this project, if you would be to be completing those 2 assignments. So this is assignment 7A. There are 4 of the parts from that assembly in here. And if you click on any one of these PDFs, for instance, this is going to be the drawing guide. So you want to duplicate what you see here, making sure you're using the appropriate drawing border to the right scale, and then adding the dimensions to the part, drawing up the part, okay? And then doing the very same for the additional parts that are in here. By the time you get done with the 2 assemblies, you'll have 8 parts drawn, dimensioned, and on borders, okay? They're the individual items, okay? So once you have that done, then we go to the assembly drawing. So like I said, if you're not quite there yet, that's okay. I'm still going to do the demonstration tonight so that when you get there, you have, some direction here. So if we look at our agenda, first things first, you're going to use that page 687 in our textbook to, kind of see those details. You'll also notice there are 2 other items here in PDF form, okay? The first one, this is kind of a larger view. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit of the 3 views of the assembly that you're going to create. This doesn't have the balloons on. This doesn't have the drawing border on. It doesn't have the bill of material. And I did that on purpose so that you could kind of see the parts a little bit better on here. I also kept this as as color so that you could really kind of differentiate from part to part to part. Okay. So, so this is something for you, for reference. I did print this off in the classroom in hard copy form. So you guys have that if you happen to be here, but for those who are virtual, this is just kind of a nice close-up view of the 3 views that you're going to be creating. So if you need to zoom in, I think it's a little bit easier to look at this one. The other one that we have here, the second PDF, this is the actual drawing guide for the final assembly. Okay, so this one is those very same 3 views, but now you'll notice that we have the balloons on, we have the bill of material over here, we've got the drawing border on, so that, like I said, if I try to zoom in on this, yes, you can, but it's a little bit grainier. It's a little, you know, it's a little bit harder to see the details. So that's why I have both versions of. So, so that's what you see here in the agenda item. And I'm going to show you how to kind of get started on that, pull the borders in, kind of give us some reminders, show you how to get the bill of material in place and balloons and all that kind of stuff. And then it says here, you're going to attend, you're going to see the demo, use the parts drawn from assignments 7A and 7B. So again, if you don't have those done, that's okay. Just sit back and kind of watch what I do tonight now. And then you're going to be submitting the PDF of the final assembly here. There's only one item that you're going to be handing in for module 8, and that's just the final assembly. That's it. Okay. And it's going to be based on that drawing guide. You're going to be submitting that. So it's going to be on a C-size border. You're going to balloon, you're going to section as needed. You're going to add the bill of material, and you're going to fill in the title block. Okay. The assembly always goes faster than the details. The details are the slow you down stuff. And so the assembly is you're going to find is going to go relatively quickly compared to all the individual details. So, so let's kind of get started on this. And I'm going to show you the process that you're going to go through and the items that you have to keep in mind as you go along that path. So what I've done is I've already pulled open AutoCAD. All of my detailed drawings have English units or inch units, okay? So I opened up my WCTC inch template, okay, to kind of get started here. And you'll notice that the generic drawing1.dwg is here, okay? So that's where we start. Then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull in the individual parts at a 1-to-1 scale, and then we're going to place the parts, the views that we need for each one of our parts, just like we did for that small assembly that we did in the practice problems for module 7. Okay. Now I'm going to go underneath our camera, and I'm actually going to kind of use both of these, but this one's, like I said, a little bit easier to look at. The first part I'm going to bring in is going to be the base. Okay. So the base has the front view, top view, and then the right side view. Okay. So, so that's the first part I'm going to bring in because that's where everything gets attached to. Okay. So, so I'm going to go back over to AutoCAD, and just like I would for any part that I'm going to bring in, I'm going to go over to the Insert tab, and I am going to insert from block libraries. And over here, I'm actually going to put the chat away for a little bit. Then over here, I'm going to arrow down and say browse block libraries. Okay. Now I'm going to go to the directory for which I would have, or where I had saved all of my drawings for this project. Okay. So depending on where you have your stuff, I have mine in my tech drafting, and then I usually go to module assignments. I have module 8. I have all the drawings in there. So you might have them in module 7, the detailed drawings, and then you're going to have the base. So I'm going to pull in the base. Now this base is going to be dimensioned. It's going to be on a drawing border, and that's totally fine. We're going to bring that all in. Now you'll notice that it populates right here, and I'm going to left click, and I'm going to bring this in. Okay. Now, when I bring it in, remember it's a click, click, not a click and drag. I'm just going to place it anywhere on the screen, left click. And then now it wants me to, once it's asking me, what's the scale you want to bring this in at? So if you look down at your command line, it has 1 as as in the brackets. You can either input 1 or just hit enter, because that's usually what it thinks you're going to do. But if you want to bring it in at 2 times or 3 times, but remember, individual parts are always drawn 1-to-1, and we bring them in 1-to-1. Okay. We adjust the border around it, and we adjust the text size. Okay. But that we always draw 1-to-1. So we want this in here as 1-to-1. Now what we want to do, as we know, First things first, if I go over the top of this, this is all one item. It brings it in as a single block, okay? We first need to explode that. So we're gonna go back to the home ribbon, and underneath our eraser, we're going to click on explode, and we're just gonna select any line, and we're gonna hit enter. And now what it's done is now we have individual pieces. Our border will still be the same, but that's okay. But we've got our, each dimension is separate and such. Now, I'm going to go back to, as you guys have the drawing guide. So what you want to do is you want to look here, like, what are the views that I want to save and use? And what are the things that I want to get rid of? Okay. So I'm going to do just the right side view because I just want this outside. I'm going to do the front view and the top view. That section view I'm going to get rid of. Okay. And then all of the dimensions and the border. So this view right here, the section view, we're going to get rid of, but we're going to keep these three right here, front, top, and right side. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to go to erase, and I'm going to kind of strategically get rid of the things that I don't want. I also like to delete the dimensions. You could hide the dimensions if you want, but remember, then in this file, you're always saving information that you're not going to reference. So I do like to get rid of it. So I'm going to take the time to delete all of this stuff. And this out of here. I can't do two things at once. There we go. Okay. Oops, a little bit more. Okay. So it looks like for the most part, I've got a couple little residuals here. Get rid of those. And I think for the most part, I've got my three views here. So now that I've got this in, I'm going to do a file, save as, and I want to save it as you know, just keep saving as often as you don't want to lose what you have. And I'm going to go to my, let me see here, OneDrive, mechanical design, tech drafting. There we go. And I'm going to call this machine device assembly. And I think this is like number 3 at this point. There we go. Okay, so this is my start. All right. Now what I want to do is I want to kind of go back and compare here. What are the things that I need or don't need? Okay. So as we look in the right side view here, we're going to be putting our sliding jaw in place. So when I look in this direction, I am not going to see the 2 holes that are here. So you'll notice that we don't see those in that view. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of those right away. And then any hidden lines for the most part. I am going to be switching a couple of these to visible lines so that I can use those. But in an assembly view, in an assembly drawing, I should say, we leave out the hidden lines and most of the center lines too. Again, we just want to show the items so that we can balloon to them or show where they're at. So in this view right here, I am going to get rid of the hidden lines that I see in this view. I'm in the right side view right now. Okay. I'm going to get rid of this line. Oh, this one's a solid. Yep. In this view. And then I'm going to do here. I'm going to get rid of the 2 holes here because that's going to be a different part. And then I'm going to get rid of these 2 right here and right here. Yes. And some of these are going to convert. There you go. So we're just going to clean up where we need to. And then this line and this line go to solid. And then we're going to do the same thing over in the other view. Any of our hidden lines, we're either going to get rid of, or we are going to convert to being solid. This here, this hidden line for the tapped hole, we're going to get rid of that one. And then over here as well. I am going to keep the center line. This one is not going to be seen because we do a section view, as we can see on top. And then this one goes to, these three go to object lines, okay? And then we do the same thing in the top. So I'm going to get rid of these two center lines, get rid of hidden lines. This one. And over here. And once we kind of get rid of what we don't need, you'll notice that it starts to look kind of generic. Okay, and that's good. That's good because if we would have all of the hidden lines and all the little individual things, it starts to just like look like it's just a bunch of black lines because they go over the top of each other and it's too much. So this is going to be our first part. So I'm going to do a quick file save. Okay, if I'm forgetting anything, remember, we are going to be using, always reference back to here. This is your final. So if in my lecture here I forget one or two things, this is going to be what you're going to be working off of. Okay, so I believe I'm pretty good on my base right now. Then the next part that I'm going to bring in, okay, is going to be my sliding jaw here. Okay, my sliding jaw. So I'm going to go back to AutoCAD. I still have my dialog box open for the insert, so I can just arrow down and go to Browse Block Libraries. And it should bring up that same directory that I had gotten my other items out of. And this is going to be the sliding jaw, okay, the sliding jaw. So I'm going to open that up. It's going to populate here. I'm going to left click and I'm going to pull it in. Again, I'm just going to kind of fit it right here. This is going to be a scale of 1 to 1. And then now I am going to explode and get rid of what I don't need. So I'm going to get rid of my border, any dimensions, the section view. I'm going to keep my top view, but I'm going to get rid of all of my dimensions. Do a quick save. All right. Now, as far as what I'm going to need, so if I go down and I go underneath here, we don't see the section view or the section lines here, but in our assembly, we do a full section in our top view. Okay, so we go right down the middle here. So our front view in our assembly ends up being a section view. So the parts that are sectioned are parts that we actually physically are going to be cutting. Okay, and we're going to go right down the middle of our sliding jaw. And that's what this profile is right here. Okay, so I am going to put that in place first, which is this view right here. Now, before I do that, I'm going to get rid of some of the things that I don't need. These two counterbore and threaded holes, they are on either side of the center line that we're going to be doing the cut down. And there's another place where we can see those. So we are just going to completely get rid of these lines. These two lines, this one, and then I'm going to get rid of the threaded hole here, but we are going to convert this bore here, these lines to object lines, okay? So I'm going to just select each one of those and I'm going to put them on the object line layer, okay? All right. Oh, and then lastly, I've got this little curve coming down in here. I can get rid of these items and then trim this to this to there so that we have that. And it looks like there's a little residual point here. So I'm going to get rid of that one. Okay. So now this is going to be what I put into my front view. So I'm simply going to move. Okay, I'm going to kind of move it down here first So I kind of get it by, move it close first. Here, here. All right. Now, this center line right here and this center line right here have to be in line with one another, okay? But I want to place this kind of in the middle of the base-ish, okay? It doesn't have to be perfectly in the middle. If I go underneath here, I didn't measure this to be perfectly in the middle, but I have it placed in the middle here. So we can kind of see this lead screw into the part, okay, but not at each one in either one of the extents. So I just want it right about there. Again, you don't have to be super exact, but I need this center line to be in line with this one. So I'm going to move this and I'm going to go from this endpoint, but I'm going to go perpendicular to the center line down here. So now they're in line with one another. And now all I want to do is get rid of the lines that I don't need. So I'm going to trim away the middle part here, this one. And then, oh, I just noticed these feet we wouldn't show. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of these guys because these are going to actually, these would be hidden lines in this view. So I'm going to get rid of these right away. And I think that looks pretty good. Okay, I'm going to wait on doing my crosshatch. Okay, we're just kind of putting these in place right now. All right, so there's that part. Then as I look underneath, I am now going to position the top here. So this is in line with my part right here. Okay. So I'm going to position this in the top view. So I'm going to go back to AutoCAD. I'm going to find my top view here. And I am going to move this kind of over here. All right. And then I want to get rid of, you'll notice that I do not see any hidden lines in that top view. So this is the start of that sliding jaw. There's no hidden lines in here. So I'm going to get rid of them all. Okay. AutoCAD. I'm going to leave the center line in for where it is going to line up with the other parts. But as far as anything else, it's going to look just like that. And then now I want to put it along this center line, but in line with the front side. I'm going to use the front side. Oopsie. Sorry. I have one of those mouse pads that if I hit it, it kind of is sensitive. So I'm first going to move this in line with the center here. So I'm going to go perpendicular to this center. Okay. And then I'm going to draw a line from the front, and I am just going to make it ortho right there. Okay. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to move from the intersection right here to the perpendicular to that line that I just created. And then I can now delete. Okay. So all I did was I drew that line in there. So I knew where the front of this was. So now this is in line with the front. Okay. So that is the top. And then I can get rid of, I can trim away the line in here and the line in there. I think that looks correct. There we go. So again, no hidden lines, kind of keeps it nice and clean. Okay. I'm going to do a file save. And then the last part I have to put in is going to be on this right side view. So I'm going to bring this down closer to where I want it to be. Turn ortho off. It's going to be somewhere in here. And this center of this hole is going to line up with the center here. Okay. But I'm going to get rid of this hole only because if I look back underneath here, this circle right here is this looking in this direction at the end of my lead screw. So these two circles right here representing the threads, I am not going to see in that view. Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of them. I'm just going to maintain the center line or the center mark for that. And then I'm also going to get rid of the other hidden lines that we see here. this one going across, but I am going to keep the counterboard threaded holes, and those are all going to change to visible lines because we're going to section back to those. So I'm just going to select all of these with a window. Okay, and we are going to put those on object line number 1. Okay, and now those are all object lines. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to move this entire view from this center to this center, and that's it. Okay. Now, something I'm not going to take the time to do here is there is multiple lines on top of each other here. I expect you to remove those. So for instance, there's another line. This is the same width. If I delete this line, okay, there's still a line underneath there. My expectation is that you're going through, and as many lines as you see, you're going to remove the lines that are on top of each other. Okay, again, I'm not going to take the time to do that here, just for the sake of your sanity and watching me do AutoCAD. Okay, so now I feel like, all right, I have my 3 views for my sliding jaw in place. I'm going to do a file save as, and as you can see, you continue to do this for each one of the parts. Okay, so you bring it in, explode it, you save the parts that you need, get rid of the parts that you don't, and then you place things. And again, using the drawing guide, this is going to be your final result, making sure you understand where each one of these parts go and how they are represented in the assembly drawing. I do want to talk about this little section right here and a couple others individually. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of abandon pulling any more parts in individually. Okay. But what I do want to bring up is I'm going to bring up the part. This is the part that doesn't have the balloons on it. So I want to kind of show you some things here that as you're putting some things together. So as I stated earlier, we don't put hidden lines in an assembly view except for one exception, and that is when we are representing threads in a simplified form. So the only hidden lines that you see here are on our lead screw to show the minor diameter of that Acme thread. Okay, so you would represent that, as you know, in the detailed drawing, just as we see it here, but we maintain the hidden line so we can see that that's a threaded feature in our assembly. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so that's why we see those here. Now, I want to show you this little area right here. Okay, when we show our lead screw in here, you're going to bring the lead screw in first. Okay, and before you place it in here, you are going to put the collar on it. All right. So I want to do that for you so you can see that process. So even though I have it here already, I'm going to browse block libraries. I'm going to bring that lead screw in. I think it's called the lead screw. What is it? No, it's the sled screw. What's that called? I thought it's called the lead screw. Vice screw. It's called the vice screw. That's why, not the lead screw. Open. Okay, so it's in here. I'm going to bring it in. Yes, I'm going to redefine it. That's fine. Okay, so 1-to-1, I'm just going to explode this, get rid of this. I'm only going to see my view here. And I'm just going to mirror this. And I do want to erase the source data. Okay. Now, this is my lead screw I'm going to pull in. The next part that I want to pull in before I place it in the base is that collar. Okay. So the collar, I know I already have that here. I'm just going to pull it in a second time. I just want to redefine it. That's fine. Here. All right. And I'm going to, again, going to get used to exploding and deleting here. I'm going to get rid of this too. Okay. And then I also have to mirror that so it's in the right orientation. The threads are going to go to, if you would, the outside, erase the source data. Now, how you want to line this up. This center line is going to be the same center as our lead screw. So I'm going to move vice screw, sorry. This from here to here, okay, just so that they're in line with one another. Now, I need to place this along here. You are going to line up this front edge right here with this edge right here on the vice screw, okay? So I'm going to move this, and I'm going to go from this intersection right here to this intersection right here, okay? Right there. Okay, don't line up this edge on the outside. Line it up right here, okay? Then what we're going to do is now we're going to place these two items into the assembly, okay? And we are then going to put the front edge here to the bottom of that bore in our sliding jaw, okay? So I'm going to move this whole thing, and I'm going to grab the front intersection right here, the very end of that vice screw right here. And we are going to go down here. I'm not going to place it, but you're going to place it right there. You see that? It goes to the bottom of that bore, the bottom of that bore. So place your collar first here, and then bring this to, let's see, come on. Bring that to the bottom of the bore. So our collar is going to be, you're going to see just outside. The front edge of it is just outside of it. And that's totally fine. Okay. That's no problem. This collar is adjustable. Okay. So you can put it in further or you can pull it out. But we are aligning it with that front edge right here of that groove. And then the front edge of our vice screw goes at the bottom of that bore. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you there. Now, additionally, you're going to notice that we have these two squares here that are solid. This is what we call the special key. You guys didn't draw this in 7A or in 7B. It is such a simple part. I'll show it to you. It is in our book. It's right there, okay? And all that does is it just holds that in place while it's inside of that bore, okay? So I didn't feel it was necessary to really create it. So all we're going to do is we're going to represent it in the assembly, and you're going to put it in the bill of material. And that's what part 10 here is. And you're going to notice it's called the special key. You're going to represent it in the assembly, but you're not creating a detail for it. So if I go back to AutoCAD here, to represent it, this is all you're going to do. You're going to make this a rectangle, and you're going to hatch this in as solid. That's it. So if I delete this out, all you're going to do is you're going to create a line right there and right there to close it in so you have a rectangle all the way around here. And then you are going to change this to your X hatch. You're going to go to the hatch function. You're going to make sure it's set on solid. You're going to click here and you're going to click there. And now it's in place. So you're not going to have a part to pull in for the special key. And you're not going to be creating a detailed drawing for it. You're just going to represent it here. And we're going to use, and I'll show you when we balloon it, how we represent that. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. The same thing for the pin. There is a pin that holds the balls on the end of our handles, okay? This pin goes in there, okay? So if we look at the detailed drawing, if you would, for the handle balls, you do make this drawing, or in this part. I'll go back underneath, okay? That is this part right here. This hole is going to be the hole for the handle rod, the larger hole. The smaller hole is a pinhole to keep the ball in place. Here again, we are not drawing a pin, okay? We are just going to represent it in the final assembly, and we are going to balloon it, and it will have a bill of materials slot, okay? So here you're going to notice on that ball, where the pin would go through, we hatch that in as solid as well. Okay, we hatch it in solid just because it's a small part. That's what we do with small parts. We just make them solid, okay? And then the third part that you do not draw that will be in the assembly, well, actually the third of four, that you draw in the assembly, but you don't make a detailed drawing for it. It's called the sliding key, okay? The sliding key fits into the groove on the sliding jaw. So if I go like this, if I delete this out, all you're going to do is you're going to create a horizontal line to connect across here. The sliding key on either side fits right in here, okay? And then once you have that as an enclosed rectangle, you're now going to go to hatch. You're going to go to solid again. You're going to click here, and then you're going to point to this. Oops, the insides too, sorry. Goes here and there, just a little bit past that center line. And now that is going to be what you use to represent that sliding key, and then you can balloon it, okay? The fourth part that you're going to have on here that you will not draw, but you'll have a balloon for it, but you don't even represent it. And that is going to be the flathead screws that keep the plates, the jaw plates on either side here. The reason we don't represent them, number one, let me go to, nope, not here. Let me go back underneath here. Our section, our cutting plane line is going through the part, right? And the center lines for those two flathead screws that are going to hold that in place, they don't even go through there. So when we look at our plate here, so this one again, it's a little bit easier to look at. When we look at our plate here, all we see is the center line, okay? So we do not represent, and we don't show in our assembly the fasteners. Now, a rule about sections on assemblies. Number one, you want to represent all of the parts so that you can see them, except we never section solely for the purpose of showing a fastener. Does that make sense? Just, I mean, it's a standard piece of hardware, so we don't section for that. When we see like a handle like this and how the ball goes on it, that's different, okay? We want to see how that's working together. Or this area here where we've got the collar and the special key, we want to see those internal pieces. But to put a section intentionally through a flathead screw, again, a flathead screw is a flathead screw is a flathead screw. It's not anything super special, okay, to see orientation. So what we're going to do then is we won't represent it. There will be a line because we need it on our bill of material when we put this together, but you're going to notice that we have it as a little stacked balloon as we see it here. So number 6 is going to be the jaw plates. And then right next to it is number 11. Number 11 is that flathead's cap screw, okay? And there's going to be 4 of them, 2 on one side, 2 on the other. And we just show it right next to it because it's kind of like you're going to attach number 6 with number 11. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's how we show that. So if you're like, where's the flathead screw? We just don't represent it because we don't have to. We don't section for hardware like that. Okay. I think that's the only stacked one that we see. So questions so far, kind of looking at this. And again, I think this one's just a little bit easier to look at. You can see more of the details. Okay. Now, sections, as you see that we have a broken out section right here, and that is going to be so that we can see the 2 areas that we see in here, okay? And then that we can also see that sliding key, the most internal part, okay? That's going to be solid. Then we break the handle, okay? So if we would be looking in this direction, that handle would be going straight down, but we wouldn't be able to see this area on the back. So we literally break the handle so that we can see this chunk on the inside. Totally legal, okay? Totally legal. Now, the other part that we don't show in here, but we kind of do, is that set screw that would go up into these threaded holes here. We don't put them in because number one, they're just going to be over the top of those threads. When we threw them in, they're the same lines. So if we would put them in, we would have line on line on line. So again, you're going to notice that we balloon to those, but we're not showing them, we're not pulling them in as separate parts again. Okay. And again, just because the lines are there and they would be on top of each other. Okay. So, so the set screw too, you don't have to pull in, but you will be ballooning it. Okay. So let's look at the balloons and how to pull those in. Okay. And how to place those. So first of all, before I balloon anything, I'm going to open up my assembly. Before I balloon anything, I need to pull in my border. Remember it, right? I have to pull in my border because I'm going to have to know what is the scale that I am going to be setting my balloons at and my text. Okay. So you'll notice here that I used a C-size border and I pulled it in 1.5 times. Okay. 1.5. So when it asked me what the scale is, I put 1.5. I didn't put, anything else. So 1.5 will fit around my views. You might have to pull these a little closer to each other. Okay. Now, once I have my border in, then I'm going to be adding my balloons. Okay. Now, remember, your balloons go on your notes and your dimensions layer. Okay. And you need to set up the balloons the same way that we did when we did our practice problems. So that's why I want to go over it for you because we only did that really once. So we're going to go to the annotate tab. Down here by multi-leader, we're not going to click on that yet, but we have to set up our balloons. So I'm going to set this to standard. We're going to go to that little arrow where leaders is, and we are going to click on, it can be either, I'm going to click on standard. I think that's the one that we did last time. We're going to hit standard and we're going to say new. Okay. And we're going to call this balloons. I'm going to call it 3. Don't call it 3. Just call it balloons. And you're going to say continue. I just need something new to call it. Then we're going to we're going to change we're going to start with the leader format. Let's go in order here. So leader format tab. You're going to notice that we're going to keep the type as straight. By layer, this is going to be by blocks. We want to switch that to by layer, by layer, by layer. So if anything is by block, just like dimensions, we're going to switch it to by layer so it goes on the correct layer. We're going to change our arrowhead to dot from arrow, and we're going to change the size to 0.06. Okay. If it's anything bigger, it looks kind of obnoxious. And then the leader break is going to be 0.125, which I believe is the standard. Then we're going to go to leader structure. We're going to leave the maximum number of points as 2. And then we're going to click off of automatically include landing. We don't want that on. We don't want a landing on a balloon. Okay. And then we're going to go down to scale and we're going to click off annotative, and we want to put the specific scale as whatever we pulled our border in at. In this case, it was 1.5. So I'm going to change that to 1.5. Okay. Then I'm going to go to content. We need to change from M scale to block. Source block is going to be a circle. We're going to change this to insertion point. From center extents, we want to put it to insertion point, and then we want to change the by block to by layer, and then the scale again to 1.5. Okay. And that should be it. Then we're going to hit OK. And then we're going to say set current. So your balloons will then be the current line type for the leaders, and then we're going to hit close. So now to place a balloon, I'm going to click on multi-layer, or I'm sorry, multi-leader, and I'm going to just select wherever I want to place it. I'm going to turn my ortho off, and then I'm going to left click where like the arrow or the dot would be, and then right click where I want my balloon to be, and then I'm going to put number 1, okay, and then number 1 is placed. Now, how do you place like something like this, the 6 and the 11? Okay, so I'll show you how to do that. So imagine that I'll just delete this. Just delete these out of here. Okay, so I wanna now identify my number 6 there. So I'm gonna do my multi-leader. I'm gonna click on my first one here. In this case, these are in line. You don't have to be in line, but I did all of them in line. My 6 is going to be my first one. Okay. Now, the next one that I'm going to do is going to be the number 11. Okay. It doesn't have to be, okay, but because I have number 11 as another balloon that I need here, I'm just going to use that. So I'm going to go to this corner and I'm just going to place number 11 right about here. Okay. All right. Now, if I click on this balloon, it is all one. All right. What I want to do is I want to separate the circle and the 11 from the rest of the leader. So I'm going to explode it. Okay. So I'm going to go back to home. I'm going to explode that leader, enter. And now notice what happened. The endpoint of that leader, that leader went to its center. I am going to left click that. I'm going to take that center and I'm going to put it over here on the 6. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to do trim to trim it so that it's not going to the center of 6, but it goes to the outside. Now, something about a leader that has to happen is that leader has to extend to the center of where it's coming from. So if I do an undo here, undo. If I go like this and I move this and I put it, let's say, to the endpoint there, that's not okay. You see how that looks kind of funny? Okay. We want it to extend into the center. So I'm going to do an undo here and I'm going to grab it again, left click a second time, and then move it, like drag that grips, over. And then now I can just trim to that inside and now it's properly placed. Okay. Now that 11 is floating there. Okay. That's okay. I can move that. I can move, select the 2 of those. I'm going to go from the quadrant to the quadrant. And now those are what we call a stacked balloon. Okay. Now you're going to notice that there's another place where we use, in this case, the 7 has 2 spots and those are those 2 sliding keys. Okay. So all we have to do here is oopsie, that was the 1. You place the 1. Okay. You place the 1 and then you're just going to create another, I'm going to go back to annotate here, multi-leader. I'm going to grab that corner and I'm going to put number 7 right about there. It can be whatever number because I'm going to delete this one. And then I'm going to go back to home. I'm going to explode this, but this time I'm going to get rid of the 7 because I don't need the second number. Does that make sense? And then I'm going to go to this endpoint. I'm going to go to its center, and then I'm just going to trim back so that it's in line with the center. And then the same thing for number 8. Is that helpful? Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So that's ballooning. That's ballooning. Any questions on ballooning at all? You guys know how to place your cutting plane line, so I don't think you need help with that. And I already kind of showed you the hatching. Okay. Just be sure that when you hatch, that things that are together with one another, you want to make sure that they're a different hatch style and, if possible, a different angle. Okay. All right. And then the last thing I want to just kind of show you, remind you of how to pull in a bill of material. Okay. So to do a bill of material, we want to be on our dimension or probably our notes line. It's really not dimensions. Okay. And we're going to go to that annotate tab. And on the annotate tab, scooch down here, you'll notice that there is a tables function here in the, I don't know, 3/4 of the way to the right on the ribbon. So I'm going to click on tables. Dialog box should come up. We're going to leave this at standard, specify from an empty table. And really the place that we want to go to is right in the middle here. Now, our columns are going to be item, quantity, description, and part number. I think when we did it for our practice problems, we just had 3 columns, but we're going to do 4 for this one because we're going to use part number. Okay. So I am going to use number of columns is going to be 4. Column width, again, 1.752. We can always adjust that when we create it. Now, data rows. Remember, there's a title and a header row. We want these all to be data rows. Otherwise, it's just gonna, we don't really on a bill of material do anything but kind of technically a header or whatever at the bottom, but they do it out of order. So then the first two lines are going to be the header and the title. So then we have to have an additional however many lines. So I think that's going to be 11. We count including the item, quantity, and description row. So we're going to say 11. And now this is going to be my table. Okay. And then down at the bottom here, you start at the bottom, and this is going to be our item. Oopsie, all caps, remember. And then our next one is going to be quantity, description, and P/N for part number. Now we need to make this one a little wider. I'm remembering, how do I do that? I think I got to grab this like a grips, shift right mouse button, go nearest, make sure that I have my ortho on, kind of go, there we go, so that the description is wider. And then we're going to go up, and you're going to notice that the item is going to correspond to the balloons, okay? The quantity for however many we need. The description is going to be the name. So you have each one of those here. And then I assigned random part numbers. You don't have to worry about adding these to your thing. I didn't worry about that when we did the individual parts, but just to have part numbers in here. And then the last two, you'll notice say standard, okay? And those are just because they're standard hardware. Okay, that's it. So you can, if you guys remember how to fill this in, just double click on the item. One, if it's a number, it's going to want to right or left justify. So we want to switch that to center, middle center justify, and then hit. Oops. Double click here, justify. Don't I want middle center? There we go. Yeah. And then anytime you have a number, you're going to want to use that middle justify. If you're using letters like a description, then I believe it's center justifies. Yeah, it stays in the center, but everything else but the description is going to be, you have to change that justification. And then you're going to fill that in, and then you're going to place it just above the title block. Okay. So I know I'm kind of throwing stuff at you. Are there any questions right now? This hopefully gives you a good overview of the process that you're going to go through, how to pull those things in, a review of pulling the blocks in, removing the borders, dimensions, adding balloons, adding our bill of material. Actually, I had notes. I want to make sure that I cover the things that I was thinking about. Do you guys have any questions at the moment? Section. Slide key. Yeah, I think I hit everything. Okay. If not, then what I'm going to do, let me check the chat box just to be sure. Doesn't look like there's any questions. If there aren't any questions, then I am going to let you guys work. If you're still working on the individual parts, totally fine. Okay, that's where kind of I expect you to be. Then as you get to this point where you're ready to do the assembly, then you can refer back to this, or at least you've gotten a good, I think, overview of what to expect. And then you also have the drawing guides to compare to what your final is going to be like. And then I'm here to answer any questions. The next time that we get together, I'll kind of go over an overview again, making sure that we're all on the same page, see if anybody has any additional questions as you're working. And then I'll let you continue to work as well. All right, then that's all that I have. I'm gonna stop the recording here.